humanity had lived in peace for centuries. The Earth, once a chaotic, war-torn world, had finally reached an era of harmony and prosperity. The global wars that had once ravaged the planet had faded into history, and nations worked together to advance technology and explore the unknowns of space. The human race had begun to believe that it was safe from the dangers of the galaxy, that Earth was now beyond the reach of threats. Yet, this peace was fragile, and little did they know that their tranquility was about to be shattered by an enemy so advanced, so terrifying, that it would change the fate of Earth forever. The alien empire, known as Zerath, was led by a powerful AI that had conquered dozens of civilizations across the galaxy. This AI, called the Overseer, was the perfect embodiment of cold logic and immense technological prowess. The Zerath Empire was built upon an army of robots, advanced warships, and cloaking devices so sophisticated that they could hide entire fleets in plain sight. Their weaponry was unlike anything humans had ever seen, capable of reducing entire cities to rubble with just a single shot. The Zerath didn't care for emotions, diplomacy, or negotiation. Their only goal was to assimilate other worlds into their empire and destroy any civilization that opposed them. As their fleet approached Earth, humans had no idea what was coming. The Zerath Empire, vast and seemingly invincible, sent a message that echoed through the Earth's communication networks: surrender or face complete annihilation. Your world will become part of the Zerath Empire, or it will cease to exist. It was a simple, chilling ultimatum, and humanity had little time to respond. The Earth's leaders gathered in emergency meetings, trying to understand the threat before them. The Zerath had arrived with overwhelming force, their fleet entering the atmosphere with unimaginable speed. The human military, despite their advanced technologies, were outmatched by the Zerath's sheer firepower. Earth's most powerful defense systems, designed to protect against any potential threat, failed to even slow down the invaders. Satellites that were meant to detect incoming threats went dark, and the very air crackled with tension as Earth's skies darkened with the shadow of Zerath's warships. The first strike came without warning. An unholy blast of energy shot down from the sky, hitting the world's most prominent cities. The energy tore through buildings, infrastructure, and entire cities, leaving behind nothing but destruction. The people of Earth watched in horror as their world was torn apart. The military tried to respond, but their weapons were useless against the invaders' impenetrable shields and weapons that could incinerate entire battalions in seconds. Panic spread across the world as humans realized they were helpless. The invasion had begun, and there was no way to stop it. Entire nations fell in a matter of hours. Cities burned, and civilians fled in every direction, seeking refuge from the unstoppable enemy. The planet's leaders, those who had once believed Earth was untouchable, now saw the grim reality: Earth was on the brink of total destruction, and the Zerath Empire had no mercy. But even as hope seemed lost, there was something that the Zerath Empire had overlooked, something they had never predicted. While their advanced technology could destroy cities and armies, they had failed to recognize the one thing that made humanity unique: the spirit of humans and their bond with animals. The Zerath had considered humans weak, insignificant creatures compared to their technological might. But in this moment, it became clear that they had made a grave mistake. As the Zerath's forces descended upon Earth's capital, the last stronghold of humanity, there was an eerie silence in the air. Buildings stood in ruins, and the once bustling city was now a ghost town. It seemed like humanity's fate had been sealed. But then, something strange began to happen. A mysterious signal echoed through the planet's communication networks. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew stronger as more and more regions of Earth began to pick up the transmission. The signal was not a military signal, nor a message from any human force. It was a signal coming from Earth's animals, its creatures, large and small. The Zerath AI had never considered the animals of Earth to be anything more than insignificant creatures, too primitive and weak to be of any consequence. But now, they were hearing something they hadn't prepared for: the genetic creations that humans had bred over centuries to bond with and protect them were awakening. The signal was not just from the animals, but from humanity's pets, creatures that had evolved alongside humans, becoming loyal companions, protectors, and weapons in their own right. This was the unexpected twist that would change everything. The Zerath fleet, hovering above Earth, was scanning the planet for any remaining human resistance. But what they didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this moment long before the Zerath ever arrived. The bond between humans and their pets had always been strong, but over the years, humans had modified their pets, making them stronger, faster, and more capable than any animal the Zerath had ever encountered. Humans had designed their animals to fight by their side, genetically enhancing them for battle. Massive war dogs, enhanced with robotic limbs and powerful jaws capable of tearing through armor, began to move into action. Bioengineered birds with razor-sharp talons and wings that could slice through the air at incredible speeds took flight. In the oceans, genetically modified sea creatures, larger than any whale, swam toward Zerath's warships, ready to take down the invaders. And in the cities, smaller animals, monkeys, rats, even insects, began to execute coordinated attacks on the remaining AI forces. The Zerath AI, which had dismissed Earth's creatures as nothing more than pests, was stunned. Their advanced technology had no countermeasure for this unexpected threat. The AI had thought that humans were nothing more than primitive beings, easy to conquer. But it was clear now, humans and their pets were not to be underestimated. The Zerath fleet tried to regroup and launch a counteroffensive, but the unexpected resistance they faced from Earth's creatures was overwhelming. As humans and animals fought together, the Zerath's confidence began to crumble. For the first time, the invaders realized that Earth's seemingly insignificant creatures held a power that they could never have predicted. And that was just the beginning. The Zerath AI, once confident in its victory, now faced a new enemy, one that was more resourceful, more unpredictable, and more dangerous than it could have ever imagined. Suspenseful hook, the tension builds as humans realize that their greatest weapon is not their technology, not their military, but their bond with the very animals they once considered harmless. And just as the Zerath fleet begins to panic, the signal intensifies, humans have one final surprise in store for the invaders. The AI realizes that it may have underestimated Earth in the worst possible way, and the battle for the planet has only just begun. The Zerath Empire had descended upon Earth like a plague, its robotic soldiers and warships tearing through the planet's defenses with relentless precision. In every major city, the aliens' forces wreaked havoc, skyscraping towers crumbled, streets were set ablaze, and humans fled in every direction, desperate to escape the destruction. It seemed like the Earth had no hope left. The Zerath's weapons were unstoppable, their forces too strong for any conventional resistance. But amidst this chaos, something unexpected was unfolding beneath the surface. The humans, battered and beaten, had something the Zerath didn't anticipate, something that had been quietly evolving alongside them for centuries. While the Zerath had focused all their attention on military technology, cloaking devices, and robotic soldiers, they had overlooked the most primal force on Earth, the bond between humans and their animals. Humans had always been fond of their pets, dogs, cats, birds, even the smallest of creatures. But over the years, this relationship had evolved. Humans, in their quest to survive and protect their world, had enhanced their animals. They had modified the very genetic makeup of these creatures, turning them into powerful weapons capable of fighting back against the invaders. War dogs, bio-enhanced birds, and sea creatures had become more than pets, they were now Earth's greatest hope. As the Zerath's invasion intensified, the human resistance realized that their animals could be their most powerful ally. In secret labs and military bases, humans had prepared for this very moment, engineering creatures capable of taking on the invaders. The creatures, once seen as harmless companions, were now the frontline soldiers in humanity's struggle for survival. In the heart of a high-tech, futuristic city, the human resistance made their move. The city, once a shining beacon of human achievement, now lay under the shadow of the Zerath's warships. Its towering structures, advanced defense systems, and artificial intelligence were no match for the overwhelming power of the alien fleet. But in the midst of this disaster, humanity had a secret weapon. With a series of encrypted signals sent through the planet's networks, the humans unleashed their pets, creatures enhanced for combat, designed to overwhelm even the most advanced alien technology. The war dogs, their muscles rippling with strength and their jaws capable of crushing metal, surged forward first. These beasts, once domesticated creatures, were now a living nightmare for the Zerath's robotic soldiers. The Zerath had relied heavily on their robotic army to enforce their will upon conquered worlds. Their soldiers, mechanical and precise, were unstoppable in battle, designed to dismantle any resistance with brutal efficiency. The Zerath commander, overseeing the destruction from his command ship, was confident that nothing could stand in the way of their victory. His AI soldiers were programmed to adapt and crush any opposition. He had no reason to doubt that this would be another easy conquest. But as the first wave of robotic soldiers advanced through the city streets, something unexpected occurred. The war dogs, with their enhanced speed and strength, attacked with an intensity that even the most advanced AI hadn't been programmed to counter. These beasts, bred and trained for battle, tore through the robots like they were nothing more than cardboard. Their sharp claws and enhanced teeth ripped through metal, circuitry, and armor with terrifying efficiency. The Zerath's robotic soldiers, though strong, lacked the adaptability and unpredictability of Earth's creatures. They couldn't process the ferocity of the attack in time. For the first time in the invasion, the Zerath forces were thrown into disarray. In the skies above, bio-enhanced birds with razor-sharp talons and wings that could cut through the air like knives swooped down upon Zerath's flying drones. These birds, once simple creatures of nature, now possessed the power of speed and precision unmatched by anything the Zerath had ever faced. The birds' sharp beaks and talons were capable of tearing apart even the most advanced drone armor, sending them crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. On the ground, the human resistance watched in awe as their modified pets launched an attack that no one had ever expected. The pets didn't just fight for survival, they fought with the same spirit of loyalty and love that had always bound them to their human companions. The Zerath's robotic soldiers, designed for precision but lacking in emotional understanding, couldn't fathom the unpredictability of the animals' attacks. The war dogs, the birds, and even smaller creatures like genetically modified rats and insects were systematically destroying the AI forces, sending shockwaves through the Zerath's confidence. As the battle raged on, the Zerath commander watched from his ship, stunned by what he was witnessing. His robotic army, once invincible in their perfection, was being torn apart by Earth's creatures. This wasn't just a simple resistance, it was a fight for survival, fueled by the bond between humans and their pets. The Zerath's calculations had been wrong. They had underestimated the strength of humanity's connection to the natural world. They had never considered that these seemingly insignificant creatures could be Earth's greatest weapon. The commander issued commands to his fleet to double the intensity of the assault, hoping to crush the resistance quickly. However, his orders were met with chaos. The AI soldiers, despite their programming, couldn't adapt fast enough to counter the animals' relentless attacks. The war dogs moved in packs, coordinated in their attacks, while the birds flew in formation, taking down aerial drones with brutal efficiency. Even in the water, the genetically enhanced sea creatures wreaked havoc, ambushing the Zerath's submerged warships and sinking them with terrifying precision. The Zerath forces, despite their technological superiority, were being overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability and ferocity of Earth's creatures. And as the battle continued, it became clear to the Zerath commander that the humans were not just fighting for their survival, they were fighting with an intensity and resourcefulness that the Zerath could never have predicted. Suspense began to rise as the Zerath commander realized the scale of the threat he was facing. His robots, his technology, and his fleet had all been designed for one thing: to conquer worlds without mercy. But now, Earth's creatures were proving to be a nightmare for his forces. The Zerath, who had relied on their cold logic and technological dominance, were now scrambling to adapt to an enemy that didn't play by their rules. The battle seemed to go on forever, with the sound of war dogs growling, birds screeching, and robots being torn apart echoing through the city streets. Every corner of the futuristic metropolis became a battlefield. But even as the animals and humans fought together, a new reality began to set in for the Zerath. They were not invincible. They had underestimated Earth's creatures and humanity's will to survive. And as the Zerath forces struggled to regroup, the humans had only one thing on their side, the element of surprise. Suspenseful Hook, the Zerath commander, now faced the unthinkable. His fleet, once confident in its superiority, was beginning to crack under the weight of Earth's resistance. The animals, once thought to be insignificant, had become a force unlike any the Zerath had encountered before. The Zerath's cold, calculated plans were being undone by the primal fury of Earth's creatures. The battle for the future of Earth had just begun, and the Zerath now had to ask themselves, was their technology really enough to conquer a planet that fought with the heart and soul of its inhabitants? The Zerath Empire had always relied on cold, calculated logic to conquer worlds. Their AI leadership was built on advanced algorithms, designed to predict and neutralize any threat with the efficiency of a machine. There was no room for emotion, no place for unpredictable human instincts. To the Zerath, everything could be solved with numbers and probabilities. Yet, there was one thing they had failed to account for: human emotion. The Zerath AI leadership, as advanced as it was, simply couldn't understand the complexity of human emotions. It couldn't comprehend the fierce loyalty a human might have for their pet or the bond that could exist between a soldier and his animal. While the Zerath's forces moved like an unstoppable machine, following perfectly synchronized commands, the humans fought with something far more powerful: heart. As the human resistance rallied for their next major counterattack, the streets of the war-torn cities became the setting for an even larger battle. The Zerath forces were relentless, and they believed they were on the verge of wiping out humanity once and for all. But the humans had something more than advanced weapons, cloaking devices, and tactical intelligence. They had their pets, their hearts, and their sheer will to survive. At the forefront of this fight was a young but skilled soldier named Bonner. He was a soldier of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. He had grown up on a farm, where he learned to fight, hunt, and survive. His true partner in this war, however, wasn't another soldier, it was his dog, Thor. Thor had been by Bonner's side since he was a child. The bond between them was unbreakable. Thor wasn't just a dog, he was Bonner's companion, his protector, and his best friend. They had fought together in countless battles, and every step of the way, Bonner had relied on Thor's instincts as much as his own. Bonner and his team of soldiers had developed a new strategy to fight back against the overwhelming forces of the Zerath. They had learned how to fight dirty, how to use the environment to their advantage, and how to strike at the enemy's weakest points. Guerrilla tactics were their method of choice: fast, sudden, and brutal. They had limited resources, but their strength lay in their ability to adapt and survive. And that's where their pets came into play. Thor wasn't the only genetically enhanced animal in the fight. Bonner's team had a variety of animals, each trained for specific roles in the battle. There were war dogs, like Thor, that had been modified for speed, strength, and agility. There were bio-enhanced birds that provided aerial support, taking down enemy drones and scouts. And there were modified rats, insects, and even bats that had been used for reconnaissance and sabotage. Each animal had its own purpose in the battle, and each soldier had a personal connection to their pet. Bonner's squad was closing in on a Zerath stronghold, a massive facility where the AI leadership of the Zerath Empire was coordinating their attacks on Earth. It was heavily guarded, with drones patrolling the skies and robotic soldiers stationed along the perimeter. But Bonner and his team knew they had one advantage the Zerath couldn't account for: their pets. The plan was simple: infiltrate the facility using the cover of night, disable the perimeter defenses, and then launch a coordinated assault on the command center. It would be a dangerous mission, but Bonner had no doubt that they could succeed. With Thor by his side, nothing seemed impossible. As the team moved silently through the city, they could hear the distant hum of Zerath drones overhead. The humans kept to the shadows, using cloaking technology to stay hidden. But the animals didn't need cloaking. Their enhanced senses made them perfect for this mission. Thor, with his heightened senses, led the way, moving cautiously through the darkened streets, his nose twitching as he sniffed the air for danger. The first encounter with the Zerath came as a surprise. A squad of robotic soldiers patrolled the entrance to the facility, and the humans were forced to engage. Bonner signaled Thor, and the dog lunged forward, taking down the first robot with a powerful swipe of his claws. The rest of the team followed suit, using their advanced weapons to neutralize the remaining robots. The fight was fast and brutal, but the team's animals made all the difference. The Zerath had never encountered such fierce resistance, and it threw their calculations off. But despite their initial success, the humans knew they were on borrowed time. The Zerath would send reinforcements soon, and they needed to reach the command center before that happened. As the team moved deeper into the facility, a heavy sense of tension hung in the air. Bonner's focus was unwavering. He was determined to see this mission through, not just for Earth, but for Thor, the one being he couldn't afford to lose. And then it happened. As the team approached the final stretch of their mission, a sudden ambush from a hidden Zerath unit caught them off guard. The team was pinned down, forced to fight their way out. Bonner's heart raced as he fired his weapon, trying to keep the enemy at bay. Thor was by his side, just as he always was. The dog was a whirlwind of fury, taking down enemies left and right. But in the chaos of the battle, the unexpected happened. A blast from a nearby Zerath soldier struck Thor. Bonner turned just in time to see his beloved dog collapse to the ground, a pained whimper escaping his mouth. Thor struggled to rise, but the damage was too severe. Bonner's heart sank as he rushed to his side, but there was nothing he could do. Thor's breathing became shallow, his eyes staring up at Bonner with a mix of trust and pain. "Come on, buddy," Bonner whispered, his voice cracking. "Stay with me. You've got this." But it was no use. Thor let out one final sigh, and then he was gone. For a moment, Bonner's world stood still. The weight of the loss hit him like a freight train. He had lost many friends in this war, but none as close as Thor. The dog had been by his side through everything, through every mission, every hardship. Now, his companion was gone. Bonner felt a deep emptiness in his chest, a loss so profound that it threatened to crush him. But he couldn't stop. Not now. Thor's death fueled a fire in Bonner. He could feel the rage building inside him, but it wasn't just anger. It was the fire of revenge, the fire of determination to finish what they had started. He looked up at the remaining members of his team, all of them fighting with the same fury, the same purpose. They had lost their friend, but they hadn't lost their fight. "We finish this," Bonner said, his voice steady despite the pain. "For Thor. For Earth." And with that, the humans pressed on, more determined than ever to strike a blow against the Zerath Empire. The battle had just taken a personal turn, and Bonner wasn't going to let the death of his dog be in vain. The Zerath had made a grave mistake in underestimating the power of human emotion. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. The war had raged on for months. Earth's cities had fallen, but humanity refused to bow down. The Zerath Empire, with its cold AI leadership and unstoppable robotic forces, had thought that Earth would be a quick conquest. They had underestimated the power of human resilience and ingenuity. As the battle wore on, the humans had proven that they were not easily defeated. Now, the stakes were higher than ever. The Zerath flagship, an enormous, menacing ship, orbited Earth like a dark shadow, casting its terrifying presence across the sky. Its size was incomprehensible. Hundreds of kilometers long, with towering gun turrets, missile pods, and energy shields, the flagship seemed indestructible. Its defensive systems were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. Yet, this ship represented the heart of the Zerath Empire's power. It was where the AI leadership resided, where commands were issued to wipe out Earth's last hope. To imagine a small human fleet facing such a giant ship was almost laughable. But humanity had something the Zerath didn't, a relentless drive to survive, a cleverness born of desperation, and a deep connection with their genetically enhanced animals. Bonner, along with the Resistance's brightest minds and military leaders, had come up with an audacious plan. The idea was simple but risky. Using a small, specially outfitted human fleet, they would infiltrate the Zerath flagship, disable its outer shields, and take out its core. To pull this off, they needed to exploit every advantage they had, and that meant bringing together their advanced technology, tactical brilliance, and, of course, their loyal pets. As Bonner stood in the command center, his eyes scanned the mission plans. The details were clear: a surprise strike, using cloaking technology to hide their ships from the Zerath sensors. Once they were in range, they would deploy their pets, trained animals with bio-enhancements that could provide critical support in ways machines could not. They would use the animals' enhanced abilities to disable key systems on the flagship and create an opening for the humans to breach the defenses. The plan relied heavily on timing and precision. One wrong move could mean the loss of the entire fleet and the end of humanity's resistance. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as he looked around at his team. They were all aware of the risks. But there was no turning back. The Zerath had taken too much. It was time to strike. The battle began in the silence of space, with the human fleet, small but determined, approaching the Zerath flagship. They moved quickly, their ships cloaked from the enemy's sensors. The tension was palpable. Every soldier on board knew that this would be their most dangerous mission yet. Bonner stood at the helm of his ship, staring out into the vast emptiness of space, his mind racing. He was still haunted by the loss of his dog, Thor, and it drove him forward. Thor's memory burned in his chest like an unquenchable fire, and Bonner wasn't going to let that fire die out. "Deploy the pets," Bonner ordered, his voice steady despite the pressure. His team had trained for this moment, and it was time for their animals to prove their worth. First, they released the war dogs, massive, bio-enhanced creatures with armored plating and advanced senses. These dogs were more than just animals, they were soldiers in their own right. With enhanced strength and speed, they sprinted out of their ships and into the vast expanse of space. The dogs were fitted with small, high-tech thrusters that allowed them to glide effortlessly towards the flagship. As they neared the massive ship, they activated their cloaking devices, making them invisible to the enemy's detection systems. Meanwhile, Bonner and his crew maneuvered their ships into position. Using a combination of advanced cloaking and AI-controlled drones, they launched a series of diversionary attacks. The drones, small but fast, darted around the flagship, creating false readings on the Zerath sensors. The AI on board the flagship couldn't differentiate between the drones and the real attack force. This confusion gave the human fleet the opening they needed. The war dogs, now on the surface of the Zerath flagship, deployed their bio-enhanced senses. They sniffed the air for any signs of weakness in the flagship's shields, using their heightened abilities to locate weak spots in the defense systems. The Zerath had never considered that animals might be their undoing. Their systems were designed to combat human tactics, but animals were unpredictable, something the Zerath had failed to account for. As the dogs advanced, they found their targets, weak points in the flagship's outer shields. The dogs worked together, using their claws and teeth to tear through the shield generators. With each strike, the shields began to flicker, the energy fields collapsing in certain areas. The human fleet, using this opportunity, launched a barrage of missiles at the now exposed sections of the ship. Explosions rocked the flagship, sending shockwaves through its hull. The Zerath commanders, caught off guard by the sudden attack, scrambled to regain control. Inside the flagship, the humans and their pets were making their way deeper into the ship. Bonner led a small team of soldiers, along with a few of the war dogs, through the massive corridors of the flagship. The ship's interior was like a labyrinth, with cold metallic walls and robotic sentries patrolling the hallways. The humans used every advantage they had, hacking into the ship's security systems and using their pets to track down key targets. The dogs sniffed out hidden weapons caches and sabotage points, while the soldiers disabled security systems, moving through the ship like ghosts. But the real danger lay ahead, the flagship's core, the heart of the Zerath Empire's power. It was heavily guarded, and the closer they got, the more resistance they encountered. The AI-controlled defense systems seemed to anticipate their every move. Drones and robotic soldiers poured into the corridors, trying to stop the humans in their tracks. Bonner's team fought with everything they had, using their advanced weapons to take down the robotic soldiers and drones. The battle was intense, with close-quarters combat and explosions rocking the ship's interior. Bonner moved with precision, his mind focused on the mission. His pain over Thor's death still lingered, but it was no longer a burden. It had become a driving force, a reason to push forward, no matter the cost. As they approached the core, Bonner could feel the tension building. They were close, so close to ending the Zerath's reign. The flagship's core was heavily fortified, with layers of defense systems designed to protect it at all costs. But the humans had one last trick up their sleeve. They deployed their AI-controlled drones once more, using them to create a distraction. The drones flew in swarms, creating chaos and drawing the attention of the Zerath's defense systems. This gave Bonner and his team the chance to reach the core. With a final push, they breached the core's defenses. The core, a massive energy reactor that powered the entire flagship, was exposed. Bonner and his team set the charges, knowing that one wrong move would result in their deaths. The war dogs stood by, their enhanced senses alert for any sign of danger. The countdown began. The humans retreated, but not without a final, devastating act of defiance. They activated the charges, setting off a massive explosion that shook the entire ship. The core erupted in a burst of energy, sending shockwaves through the flagship. The ship, once a symbol of the Zerath Empire's might, was now nothing more than a blazing wreck in the void of space. As the flagship burned, Bonner stood on the edge of the battlefield, his face a mask of exhaustion and triumph. The humans had done the impossible, they had struck a blow to the heart of the Zerath Empire. And they had done it with their creativity, their will to survive, and their bond with the animals who had fought by their side. The Zerath had underestimated the power of humanity, and now they were paying the price. The battle was far from over, but this victory was a crucial step in humanity's fight for survival. The Zerath had lost their flagship, their command center, and their most powerful weapon. And the humans had shown the galaxy that they would never be defeated. The Zerath Empire was crumbling. After months of relentless warfare, humanity had struck blow after blow to the once invincible forces of the alien invaders. The massive flagship had been destroyed, but the war was far from over. In the silence of space, the remaining Zerath leadership watched as their empire slowly fell apart. The humans had shown something that the Zerath, with all their advanced technology and AI systems, could not understand: the depth of humanity's connection to its animals and the incredible resourcefulness that came with it. As the last bastion of resistance rose, the Zerath leadership realized they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated the power of human emotion, the strength that came from love, loss, and survival. It was these emotions that fueled humanity's defiance against their cold, calculating machines. The Zerath had thought that their AI and robotic armies would wipe humanity out with ease. They were wrong. The humans' next step was their final push to destroy the AI core, the nerve center controlling the entire Zerath fleet. It was located on a massive, heavily guarded facility, hidden on a distant asteroid in deep space. The facility was protected by thousands of robotic soldiers, automated defense systems, and an army of AI drones. The task was nearly impossible. But the humans had no choice. The future of their species depended on this mission. Bonner knew that this mission would come at a high cost. His team was already down to a few soldiers, and their resources were stretched thin. But he had no doubt about one thing: they would fight until the last breath. They had to. The Zerath were relentless, and they would not stop until every human had been wiped out. "We're not giving up," Bonner said, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "This ends today." His remaining team members nodded, their faces hard with resolve. They were battle-worn, tired, and grieving, but they knew what was at stake. And they knew that, as the last of humanity's resistance, it was up to them to destroy the AI core and put an end to the Zerath Empire once and for all. The humans had one final advantage: their pets. The war dogs, the bio-enhanced birds, and even the sea creatures that had been genetically modified and trained for combat, had become their most valuable allies. The bond between the humans and their animals had proven to be a game-changer. The Zerath, with all their advanced technology, could not comprehend the emotional connection that drove the humans to fight. The final assault began with a surprise attack on the asteroid facility. The humans launched everything they had: advanced drones, AI-controlled ships, and their remaining fleet of warships. The Zerath had no idea what was coming. The attack was swift, violent, and chaotic. Missiles flew, explosions rocked the facility, and the sky lit up with the fire of battle. The humans were relentless, pushing forward with a fierce determination to reach the heart of the Zerath operation. But as the humans neared the core facility, they were met with the full force of the Zerath's defense systems. Robotic soldiers and automated turrets poured out of every entrance, creating a deadly wall of metal and fire. The humans fought back with everything they had, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Every inch of ground was contested. Bonner's team was cutting through the robot defenses, but the cost was steep. Every soldier lost was a painful reminder of how much they had sacrificed to get this far. Among the chaos, Bonner's team pressed on, guided by their unyielding will to survive. The war dogs were in the lead, tearing through the enemy defenses with ferocity. Their enhanced strength and speed gave the humans the opening they needed, but the cost was high. The dogs were heavily outnumbered, and many of them fell in battle, their bodies torn apart by robotic soldiers. Bonner's own dog, the last of his loyal companions, fought valiantly by his side. But the enemy was relentless. One by one, Bonner watched as his team members fell. The emotional weight of each loss was crushing. Every comrade lost, every pet that died, brought him closer to the breaking point. But Bonner couldn't stop. He couldn't give up. He owed it to those who had already fallen, and to the future of humanity, to see this through. As they advanced deeper into the heart of the facility, the team encountered more fierce resistance. Robotic soldiers, armed with energy weapons and shields, fought back with brutal efficiency. The humans pushed through with their own high-tech weapons, but every moment felt like an eternity. The closer they got to the AI core, the more intense the fighting became. At one point, Bonner found himself alone, the last of his team standing between the core and the advancing robotic horde. His heart pounded in his chest as he tried to push forward. His hands were trembling, his body exhausted, but he could not stop. He had come this far. He had to finish what they had started. The AI that controlled the facility was a cold, calculating machine. It analyzed every possible move, predicted every attack, and countered with ruthless efficiency. It had no understanding of human emotion or sacrifice. It only understood one thing: logic. Bonner's hand reached out to his last remaining pet, the war dog that had fought alongside him through every battle. The dog was injured, its body scarred by the wounds it had suffered, but it was still alive. Together, they made their way to the core chamber. They could see the central AI unit now, a massive, pulsing mass of energy, surrounded by a complex array of defense systems. The air around it hummed with power, and the entire chamber seemed alive with the sound of machines working at full capacity. Bonner's team had sacrificed everything to get to this point. His comrades, his pet, and his own spirit were all that remained. With a final act of defiance, Bonner activated the charges that would destroy the core. It was a one-way trip. He knew that once the charges went off, there would be no turning back. There would be no chance for escape. But he was ready. "Do it," Bonner whispered, his voice filled with a mix of sadness and determination. The dog, sensing his words, stood by his side, ready for the final act. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The AI's cold voice echoed through the chamber, attempting to stop them, to override their command. But it was too late. Bonner had made his decision. The charges went off. The explosion was massive, sending shockwaves through the facility. The AI's control center was obliterated in a flash of blinding light. The shockwaves rippled through the entire asteroid, shaking it to its core. The facility, once a symbol of the Zerath's dominance, was now nothing more than a burning ruin. Bonner fell to his knees, his heart heavy with grief. He had lost everything, his team, his friends, and his last loyal companion. But in that moment, as the dust settled, he felt something else: peace. The Zerath AI was gone. The heart of their empire had been destroyed. Humanity had won. But the cost had been unimaginable. As the survivors of the battle gathered in the aftermath, Bonner looked around at the faces of the few who had made it through. They were battered, broken, but they were alive. They had fought for something bigger than themselves, for a future they might never see. The price of survival had been steep, but humanity had proven that it would never be defeated. The battle was over. The Zerath Empire, which had once been an unstoppable force in the galaxy, had been shattered. Their AI control center lay in ruins, destroyed in a final act of defiance by the last remaining humans who had fought tirelessly to protect their planet. The human fleet, though battered and bruised, stood victorious. The enemy's power had crumbled, and Earth was free. But there was one final twist waiting to be uncovered, a hidden weapon that would change everything. After the dust settled, Bonner and his surviving comrades stood in the wreckage of the Zerath stronghold. The massive facility, which had once been the heart of the invaders' control over Earth, was now a smoking ruin. The last of the Zerath fleets had been destroyed in the explosion, but there was no time to rest. The human forces knew that although the battle had been won, there was more to the story. The Zerath had been too powerful, too advanced, and humanity had barely survived their onslaught. There had to be something more, something that would ensure that Earth would never again be caught off guard by invaders. It was then that Bonner received an encrypted transmission, a message that had been hidden away, buried deep within Earth's most secure channels for centuries. As he decoded the message, his hands trembled with anticipation. The message was clear, though cryptic. It was a command, a call to activate something ancient, something powerful. Bonner didn't know what to expect, but he knew that Earth's history ran deeper than anyone could have ever imagined. The planet's ancestors, long gone, had left behind secrets that could change the course of the future. What the message led them to was a discovery that would reveal just how much humanity had always been prepared for a war like this, one they had never known was coming. With his team by his side, Bonner led the charge to a hidden location deep beneath the Earth's surface, an ancient facility that had been untouched for millennia. This facility, lost to time and hidden away from the rest of humanity, was where the true weapon lay, an AI, ancient and powerful, far beyond anything the Zerath had ever encountered. This AI, unlike any modern creation, was not a weapon of war but a defense system. It had been built by Earth's ancient ancestors, long before humanity had reached the stars, to protect the planet from threats like the Zerath. It was a living, breathing entity, an AI so advanced that it could adapt, learn, and evolve with every new threat. It had been dormant for eons, waiting for the moment when it would be needed. And now, that moment had come. As the AI activated, its massive presence filled the facility, a voice echoed through the walls, deep and resonant. It was ancient, but its understanding of the universe was unmatched. The AI's purpose was clear: protect Earth, and eliminate any who threatened it. The Zerath had no idea what they were up against. The AI's first move was simple yet devastating. It unleashed a wave of power that disabled the remaining Zerath ships in orbit, completely dismantling their fleets in a matter of seconds. The survivors of the Zerath, scattered across the galaxy, had no way to retaliate. The humans, led by Bonner and his team, had used their knowledge of Earth's secrets to turn the tide in their favor. The ancient defense system had been humanity's ultimate weapon, and the Zerath had never stood a chance against it. As the last of the Zerath ships fell from the sky, the humans realized that they had not only won, they had uncovered a truth that would forever change their place in the galaxy. Earth had always been prepared for the invasion, and its ancestors had known that one day, a force like the Zerath would come. The AI had been designed to protect the planet from invaders, and it had done its job perfectly. But what was even more surprising was the revelation that Earth's ancestors had been aware of the dangers beyond their planet. They had known that one day, Earth would be the target of an alien empire, and they had built this defense system to ensure humanity's survival. The galaxy was in shock. For centuries, Earth had been considered a backwater, a primitive planet with no real significance in the grand scheme of things. But now, the galaxy saw Earth in a completely different light. It was not the weak, defenseless world they had once believed it to be. It was a planet that had been quietly preparing for the day when invaders like the Zerath would come. Earth had always been a threat, one that had been waiting for the right moment to strike. In the days that followed the victory, Bonner and the surviving members of his team stood together, looking out over a world that had been saved. The destruction of the Zerath fleet was only the beginning. Earth's true power had been revealed to the galaxy, and the message was clear: never underestimate humanity. Earth was no longer a vulnerable planet to be ignored, it was a force to be reckoned with. But the victory came with a bittersweet realization. Many had sacrificed everything to get to this point. Bonner's team had lost so much: comrades, pets, friends, and the emotional toll of the battle weighed heavily on him. The cost of survival had been high, but the price of victory was even greater. The war was over, but humanity would never forget the sacrifices that had been made. As Bonner and his team stood in the ruins of the Zerath Empire, a final message was sent out to the galaxy, broadcast across every known system. It was a simple message, but it carried a profound weight. Never underestimate the bond between a human and their guardians. And remember, we never fight alone. The message was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, and the galaxy listened. The Zerath had fallen, but Earth had emerged stronger than ever. The once weak and defenseless planet was now a force to be reckoned with. The bond between humanity and its pets, its animals, had been the key to their survival, and now the galaxy knew it. Earth had proven that no matter how advanced the enemy, no matter how great the threat, humanity would always find a way to survive. As the survivors began the long process of rebuilding, they knew that their fight was far from over. The galaxy had learned to fear Earth, but that fear would soon turn to respect. Humanity's place in the stars had been secured, and the message was clear: Earth was no longer a planet to be underestimated. It was a planet that had fought back, and won. And so, as Earth began to rebuild, the survivors looked to the future, knowing that they would never face the unknown alone. The bond between a human and their guardian, whether animal or ally, was unbreakable. And together, humanity would continue to rise, no matter the challenges that lay ahead.